welcome to episode 3, Fresh Voices, season 2. We're very excited to have you here today. If you're new here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, we'd like to welcome you. We feature fresh conversations with inspirational individuals because sometimes what you need to pursue, what you've been burning to pursue, is just a story. And we have those stories here for you on Fresh Voices. We speak to content creators, artists, and people in a whole lot of different categories doing things inspirational. Today we've got a very special guest. She's in a very unique category. She spends her free time underwater in white fins. Welcome, Zinhle and Nhlapo. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good, thanks, and you? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So Zinhle has a day job like most other people, but in her spare time she does something very special. She does open water diving, or as I learned just now, scuba diving. What is the difference actually between open water diving and scuba diving?
So technically it's the same thing because you are in an open body of water, so open water makes sense. But we use the term scuba specifically because scuba is an acronym. So it stands for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. So scuba is the preferred term.
Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Who would have thought, man, like that's actually so crazy? Because you just think scuba is scuba. Who would have known it actually meant something? That's actually very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Usually I would ask guests where the journey started, but I think with you, I want to know, what do you enjoy the most about scuba diving?
I think there's a lot that's really exciting about scuba diving, but I think for me personally, the easiest answer is I just really enjoy the peace and quiet that I get from scuba. There is a lot of like small noises you'll hear underwater. You can hear yourself breathing, you can hear the coral crackling, sometimes you can hear the fish, but most of all, I just enjoy the peace and quiet because I can have the moment to myself. You can immerse yourself in the experience, but also just have time to yourself. So yeah, peace and quiet are the easiest answers.
It's interesting that you said you can immerse yourself in the experience. I think that's actually so brilliant. I don't know if you did that on purpose. But you said you can hear the sound of fish. What sounds do fish make?
So some fish have their teeth look like beaks. So just imagine a bird chomping away. That's exactly what it sounds like underwater. Maybe a little less, but more or less the same.
Okay, cool. That's very valuable information. I think I've seen a lot of your videos, and when I watch these videos, I just realized that, man, there's actually a whole new world out there underwater, so much more than we think. You know what I mean? All
100%.
these animals are just living their life away from any human being. There are even animals we haven't even discovered today, and I think it just emphasizes the vastness of the universe and just the vastness of creation. And I think that's something to just think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think I feel so blessed every time I can dive, every time I can experience God's creatures, because I feel like it's not something you see every day. You can go to a game reserve and you'll see a lion, but I get to see things that other people will never get to see in their lives. And it's something that God created. And I just feel I feel blessed to be able to share that space with some of these animals. So, yeah.
I want to know, how did you get into it? How did you get into diving? I'm sure it's a very interesting story.
So I never really wanted to do scuba diving. It's never been for me. I can swim, but I'm not a very confident swimmer. I'm not the person who just jumps into the ocean when we're at the beach. But my partner really wanted to do it for his 30th birthday. So he managed to convince me. And the agreement was if I didn't enjoy it or I didn't feel comfortable, I wouldn't do it. And I remember there were about 5 of us in our group who were doing the course at the time. And I remember being the last person to put my head underwater because you initially do a trial in the swimming pool and you have your oxygen and you're just testing things out. And I was the last person to put my head underwater because breathing underwater just didn't make sense to me. And I enjoyed it from the moment I tried it in the pool. I still have the videos of the first time I did it. And I have never looked back since then.
Oh, that's such an amazing story. And it's great that you've never looked back, or should I say you've never looked up, because, you'll be swimming up to the surface. Oh, man. I've been doing research on aviation medicine. It's just an area of medicine that I find fascinating as well, just the physiology of the human body, in higher altitudes. Is there any difference in the physiology of the human body when you're underwater? I know you're also a doctor, so is there anything you want to share on that?
I think the biggest difference is in aviation because you are in a confined space. You can control the pressure, the cabin pressure, so you've got a lot of control, and you can recreate basically being on land. Whereas when you're underwater, there are a lot of the pressure changes really do affect us. So there are a lot of things they teach us when we're doing the open water course. They liken it to a balloon. So your lungs are the balloon. So if you inhale underwater, your capacity is a lot smaller. But if you start going to the surface, which I don't like to do, your lungs start to expand. So if you're holding a breath and you start to go up, your lungs can actually explode. So they teach us things like that. So I think that's the one biggest difference is when we're underwater, the pressure changes really do affect us. Whereas aviation, I think because of the confined space, it's a lot easier to mimic being on land.
I see. I see what you mean. And for someone who's yearning about this and perhaps looking to get into this diving thing, what are the requirements? You mentioned something about swimming earlier on. I suppose you do need to know how to swim because you're going to be in water, right? But it's a different type of swimming.
Yes, 100%. Again, like I said, you don't necessarily have to be a confident swimmer, but you do need to have some swimming skills. So the two tests that they do is you have to be able to swim 200 meters unaided. So that's without fins, without any snorkels. And you need to be able to tread water for 10 minutes. So you can't hold on, but you have to tread water. So those are the two main skills you need to have as a swimmer in order to dive. But once you're underwater, the biggest thing is just floating.
Yeah. And not holding your breath.
Don't hold your breath.
Don't hold your breath. Now, I've seen a few of your videos with these amazing animals. How do you just navigate safety? You know what I mean? Especially with sharks. I suppose these are dangerous, or I think they're dangerous. How do you navigate hanging out with the animals? Aren't you scared?
I've never felt scared, which is very strange because we're always taught sharks are dangerous, and I've actually interacted with sharks a couple of times. Don't tell my mom, but I often interact with sharks. Some animals are considered dangerous. The biggest one that other people know are stingrays because of Steve Irwin. So I often get asked, is it safe? And like I said, I've never felt unsafe. Again, in the courses, they teach you to respect the animals. They're the three T's of scuba diving: no touching, no teasing, no taking. So it's important to also be mindful of your surroundings. But as much as we're scared of sharks, we're actually not a shark's first choice. They really don't want to eat us. Especially when you're a scuba diver, you're wearing the suit that doesn't smell like anything they
Right.
normally eat. You're blowing bubbles, which doesn't look like anything they normally eat. So if they're ever around, it's just because they're curious, but they never intentionally attack. Usually, when I read the stats, usually scuba diving attacks happen because we did something wrong. Humans are always the problem.
We're always the problem. We're always
You
bothering these
know?
animals. Yeah. What's your favorite animal, actually? You're talking a lot about sharks. Are they your favorite underwater creatures?
Favorite animal has to be an octopus. I think they are just so intelligent, and I think we take them for granted. They are so smart. Their capabilities are unbelievable. If you see them like shape shifting, color changing, it's something that's like it's inconceivable. And when you look at like the anatomy and physiology of how they're able to do that, it doesn't make sense. They sacrifice themselves for their young. They're able to transform the environment to make it shelter. So they do all these things that they seem human like, which is crazy. So octopus hands down.
Okay, octopus, very interesting choice. How do you communicate when you're down there? How do you talk to fellow scuba divers? Do you have speakers inside those um, headset things that you wear? Is that what you call it?
So technology hasn't caught up with us that much. Maybe they are, and I just don't know about it. But when we're doing the course, they do teach us important hand signals. My favorite one is okay. I think as South Africans, we all think this is okay because it's a shap. but that is not what you use underwater, because this means go up, and you never want to go up. If you're doing okay, this is what we do.
You never want
Don't
to
go
go
up.
up. Is that what you said?
I never want to go.
You don't
I could
go
stay
up. You have to
underwater.
go
I would
deeper.
just But yeah, so if you're okay, you do this. So this can be a question and an answer. So if someone is doing this, they're asking if you're okay, and then you just answer with this to say that you're okay.
And
Yeah,
if you're
some
not
other hand
okay,
signals are, if you're not okay, this is not okay, and then you have to point to what's the problem. So the
oh, I
biggest
see.
problem that people have is equalizing. So the pressure in the ears get intense. So you'll say you're not okay, and then you'll point to your ears. Some people get seasick, so you point to your tummy. If you're having a cramp, you'll do this. So yeah, we can actually have a full-on conversation underwater.
Okay, a full-on conversation. I see. That's really cool that you have a method to communicate. I know you recently completed your 100th dive. Actually, when I phoned you about this, or when we were speaking about this interview, you were in Indonesia completing your 100th dive there. How was that experience, and are there any other locations you would like to explore?
So in the scuba world, when you're doing your 100th dive, technically you're supposed to do it naked. Was never going to happen. So I think there was just so much anticipation. There was just so much anticipation about doing my 100th dive, and I was really excited about it as well. And so my partner did his 100th dive long before me, because he does a lot more dives, and I was so excited about his. So when it was my turn, I was really excited. I was really looking forward to it. And at the time, like Simeon said, I was in Indonesia, and I was on a liveaboard. So a liveaboard is another really cool concept for scuba diving. So it's like a yacht, but for scuba diving. So you eat, sleep, dive, and repeat. So you live on the boat, and you're there for 3-4 days at a time. And so I had a huge group of people around me, and it was just really exciting. So I really, really enjoyed my 100th dive. In Indonesia, there's a really, really nice place called Raja Ampat. It's got the top dive sites. So I think that's where I would go.
Okay, that's really cool. Apart from your 100th dive, and I suppose your first dive, what was your most memorable dive?
I definitely have to say Egypt. It was the first time I did a liveaboard as well, and it was the first time I got to swim with dolphins, which was an absolutely amazing experience for me. So definitely Egypt, and the fact that it was on the African continent was also fantastic. There's just so much to see that we don't realize in in our own backyard. So I think definitely Egypt.
Yeah, as humans, we love to explore. It's in our nature, and the more we explore, the more we discover that there's still so much we do not know, and that is extremely, extremely humbling. It's refreshing to see people like you diving, because I think you give us a glimpse into a different world that is so close yet so far away.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think, when I'm diving as well, there's a lot of moments where I reflect on just life as well, where, there's so much more to it. And, you read scripture, and there's a verse in Second Corinthians that speaks to, the things that are seen are fleeting, whereas the things that are unseen are the things that matter. Those are the things that last forever. And then I liken that to, there's so much that's out there, there's so much to be seen, but even greater than that, there's so much that we don't see that's important, like God's grace, love, the Holy Spirit. So I think that also reminds me that in the infinite magnitude that is the world, there is so much more that's greater than that, and it's the things that we don't see, and it's the things that are everlasting, I guess.
Check out Zinhle's Instagram page. It's called The Dive Through. That's the underscore dive underscore through. Very cool, very cool Instagram handle. What was the inspiration behind that? How did you come up with that? Was it while you were underwater, perhaps?
I wish I could take all the credit, but I've got a friend who's really good with play on words. And I told her I wanted to start an Instagram page, and she sent me like 8 different names, and that's the one I fell in love with. Probably also because I love food. I thought of the drive-throughs, so I was just like, dive-through makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zinhle. And thank you so much for watching this episode of Fresh Voices. Do like and subscribe and follow us. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. Excited for season 3.